So the first question was, from a top line perspective, how do you believe AI can benefit someone's brand assets based on the work you're doing in the space?
Yeah, so I think for brand, particularly leaders and a leadership brand, um, I love the way AI can bring a really sharp, clarifying lens to somebody's strengths. So I often find for people just even understanding what their brand is and sifting through all the phenomenal things that they've done and the places they've been and the people they've worked with and the feedback they've received. That's a lot for us to process. And sometimes
Absolutely.
I always say, and I have a business partner who always says that you can't read the label from inside the jar. And I find AI to be phenomenal at mirroring back to us and connecting the dots around what our strengths really are, and how those tie to characteristics that we can promote as a brand and as a leader.
So yeah, so when you talk about AI helping people to pinpoint their strengths in their with respect to their branding, I would assume it's about you feeding AI all the necessary information to be able to draw that out for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're feeding it that information, and because it draws from a collection of information that's online around, how to assess strengths and how to collate that, into narratives, and it's not doing it from its own capability. It's learning from the knowledge that is available, that's
Yep.
publicly available
Yep.
already. So I like to ask it, or I'll have people ask it to ask me 10 questions about myself, that you need to know, or about me as a leader, to mirror back to me what my leadership strengths are.
Wow.
And it will go and find the right questions to ask you, and then you go away and you reflect on those. And often that process of reflection is also really powerful because you start
Yeah.
to remember things that maybe you hadn't. And I often sit there and I'll just push the little microphone button and record into it some of my own reflections and things that I've done and ramble at it,
Yep.
a bit, which is kind of cathartic to
So
do.
it works with you. Yes.
It works with you, yeah, and it will come back and pull those pieces together. It will connect dots, that you maybe haven't seen. And if you're looking at moving yourself from one industry to another, or you want to understand more about how your brand translates, from one area to another, it's phenomenal at that
Yeah.
as well to
Okay.
say, well, I'm in consumer goods, but how would these strengths, how would my brand fit in the mining industry? Like, how can I promote my strengths as a leader, my brand as a leader for this industry and what's important to that industry? And then it's going to go off and find what's really important to that industry today, and what leaders have in common, and it's going to pinpoint those for you. So it's not telling you what your brand is. You're telling it what you've done and what
Yes.
you're known for and
Yes.
what your gifts are. It's just helping you pull all of that together and actually be able to see it.
It's doing a lot of the which I believe, I do have some issues with AI, as people would know if they've seen
Mhm.
my post.
Yeah,
But
as
but
do I.
it's a great tool for research, yeah, for saving us time on research in
Hmm.
particular, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it
Okay,
is.
great. All right. So yeah, so in line with what I just said about me sometimes having issues with AI, so I'm a big advocate of human connection, and get a bit
Mhm.
worried that AI is potentially going to kill off some of that. So I guess how would you say we're best to use AI in a way that maintains human prioritization, particularly from a human connection perspective?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't believe in using AI to replace what is uniquely human. And frankly, it doesn't do a good job of that anyway. I
Yep.
think it feels very lazy when somebody writes you a note that you can tell is blatantly AI written when it's meant to be something really heartfelt, right?
Yes.
You can tell, and that feels lazy. It feels like a shortcut. And I don't believe in that. I don't support that. But like we talked about before around the research, there's a lot that goes in the back end that we have to look up,
To
that we
prepare,
have to
yeah.
pull together multiple sources to prepare, that we need to be more informed about. We want to maybe test a few different perspectives before we say something, right? If it's a challenging decision that we are making or a tough call that we're making that we then have to present to our team or, to a business, you want to be fully informed and feel really confident in
Yeah.
standing up in front of a room and doing that. So it's not as much as going, okay, AI, write my response to this really challenging situation. I think that's absolutely the wrong thing to
Yes.
do.
Yes.
But the right things to do can be to help you prepare, to show up, to feel confident, to be informed, um, to really to add more substance to what you're going to say or what you're going to share so that it's received better. Your delivery, and your character and the way you build trust with people towards you, that AI can't tell you how to do that. That's what you
It's
learn
because
from
it's
years
energy
of
as well, isn't it?
being
It's all about energy,
it's
yeah?
energy. Right, right. You
Yeah.
might as well. I mean, if you were going to have AI just do it for you, just have a robot stand up there and deliver your communications for you,
Yeah.
right? Because that's
Yeah.
how people feel. It feels ice cold, it feels robotic. People, we spend so much time on social media now. We know when things are true. We know when things have the right energy. We know when they feel authentic, and we know when they don't,
I think
right? So
humans
it's not getting caught you.
I think humans often have a great authenticity detector. Yeah. A lot of people can pick up when something's not authentic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess something I'm thinking when you talk about using AI to gather all the information, which, geez, when I write articles, I should probably be doing that. I still go and manually look everything up. But I guess something I've been conscious of is like, that when you do like the Google searches and the AI feed at the top, or I hear people speaking that sometimes that information's incorrect. So I guess how do you ensure
Wrong.
if you're using AI to gather data that it's data that's correct? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because AI is not creating new information. I think
Yeah.
contrary to what people believe, right? When it does what's called hallucinating, it's actually not making it up, but it works on pattern recognition. So it's looking across absolutely everything it can find.
Uh-huh.
And if there is a heap of misinformation on a particular topic, it's going to present the misinformation to you as fact because it
Yeah.
can't tell what's right,
Okay.
what's
Yep.
wrong, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I think this is where experts and leaders are irreplaceable because you can see something from experience and immediately tell or have a gut feeling, let's double check that because that's not in line with my experience, with my knowledge. That's really, really important to do. And to use AI tools that cite sources and check those sources. So if you
Ah,
are doing something that needs to be sourced and factual, use tools in AI like in ChatGPT. I use deep research a lot, which is a more thorough function that will go and scrape the entire internet and come back, and it will present answers to my questions with sources that I can then go and verify. So where that saves me hours is, right, to do a comprehensive literature review on something
yeah.
can take you
Yeah.
3 days.
Yeah.
Well, let it go do the literature review and then bring it back to me. And now I have all the sources in front of me.
Yes.
I have more time to sit with the sources and pull out from them what I want to use, and I can be more informed, but don't just rely on it
To give you
giving
the right
you the
information. That's it.
answer to
Yeah.
give you the right, yeah, right? So there's still a layer of human experience and knowledge that you have to apply. You cannot trust that everything it gives you is 100% factual all the time and present that forward.
Yeah.
But you can get to the sources faster.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense, and then check the credibility of those sources. Something that you've mentioned a few times is experience, and I know Google has implemented experience into its search parameters, yeah, to try and keep Google searches higher quality and based on experience, yeah, yeah. So that aligns very well
Yep.
with what you're saying,
One
and
of my biggest criticisms with where we're heading is that the more AI created slop gets put out into the internet that's actually incorrect, the harder it will become to use AI for anything factual
yes,
because it's generating based on AI generated information, right? It just
Yep.
becomes this, and there's a lot written about this now, that how long does it take until it's actually obsolete because it's just recycling its own
I saw an
information.
article on that recently, actually. Yeah, someone talking about
Yeah.
that slop, AI slop, and that's a nice
Well,
segue
yeah.
into what I next actually want to ask you about. So, my next question was about ensuring we don't get overwhelmed with it. AI doesn't overwhelm us with information, when we're defining our unique brand, for instance. And I can think of examples of clients when they've sent me probably AI slop, like a heap of information that AI's generated for them for their career
Yeah.
documentation. And to be honest, I often find it quite overwhelming to try and work through all that information. So I guess there is the way that you can ensure that you don't get overwhelmed by AI information when you're using it to define a career brand, for example.
Yeah. And it's really easy to do. I did a session a few weeks ago, and somebody asked me that same question. She said, "Oh, but I get into using it, and I just keep going, and then I end up overwhelmed
Yeah,
because it's now given 17 different versions, and I can't recall which version that it had given me. And
too much
it's like
information.
with any technology, right? It's too much information. If you ask it to keep generating, it will,
Yeah,
and that's a real human boundary that we have to set, is around what am I really asking for? What do I really need this for? I'm also not a big proponent of it's an enormous energy resource, right? And it's a sustainability problem. So
yeah.
I'm not a big fan of going in and, asking it, what should I eat for breakfast? And to regenerate the same material over and over and over to change a single word in the next draft. Like, I think that's very wasteful.
I've never
And
thought of it from
I'm
that
very open
perspective,
about.
sustainability. Yeah,
We Yeah, it's really, that's really, really important, really top of mind. It's going to be for governments as well, is, don't use it to edit a single word and ask it to regenerate the entire the
geez.
entire thing. Um, but I think really going in, knowing exactly what you need it for in the branding process is a way to limit that, right? So if it's
Yeah,
helping you maybe take a piece of your experience that you want to highlight and add that into an existing bio that you already have, for example,
yep.
that's a great use case because it's a finite output that you want to update in the same tone, in the same language, like really, really quickly, and then send that off, right? So it's those shortcuts that are valuable, but that are finite, right? It's not this infinite generation of information and tell me about myself and give me 17 different versions of my career history.
And I think what you're highlighting there too is, and this is something I've seen. Like I recently watched an interview with the CEO of an applicant tracking system software, yeah, and he really highlighted this, that human efforts still really matters, like when you're applying for jobs, for instance. But in general, human effort to define what you want AI to do for you. Don't be lazy and just go, give me this, give me all this. You've
Yeah.
really got to be clear
Yeah.
and have parameters and define it, yeah?
I think that's a real benefit, is that in many ways AI is going to train us to ask better questions
Yes.
of what we want, because if you don't ask in the right way, right, speaking to a computer, you're not going to get the output that you want
Yep.
correctly.
Yep.
And so I think in many ways for myself, it has forced me to really think about the output first, right? What is the end goal of what I'm asking for? What do I need included? What do I want that to look like? What do I want it to not include? And actually be more critical
Yes.
um,
Critical
about
thinking.
that. Critical thinking. And I think that is actually a real benefit for a lot of us, to go back to that and thinking about, how we ask for things better. When you ask for them from a person, that person's going to come back and ask you clarifying questions, or they're going to go and try and figure it out and hopefully not do it, wrong and get in trouble with their boss.
Yep.
But when you ask it of a computer, you just put it in, it's going to give you what you asked for, whether you asked for it well or not. And so that's going to train all of us to be a bit more discerning about what we're actually looking for and what we actually want.
Yeah, I think there's a novelty factor with it at the moment, isn't there? Yeah, like people like, what should I eat for breakfast, and find me this recipe, and like I think there's a real novelty factor at the moment. But there'll come a time where that's going to calm down, and like you say, we use it the right way as a support tool for us, where we still contribute our critical thinking, yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And it's going to creep into everything. So maybe if you're looking at what to eat for breakfast, right? Like that's going to be where potentially like Pinterest, right? Has great recipe ideas, breakfast ideas. It can now better serve you up custom ideas around what to eat for breakfast
Yeah.
through the AI that it integrates and
Yeah.
what it already does rather than us having to go and ask for it. I think it'll all become a little bit more automatic over
Yeah, geez,
time.
I've got so much to learn about AI. I think I've been a rebel against it. I've barely used it. Um, Now, this probably ties into what you talked about earlier about the helping you to define your strengths. But something I really promote as a career brand consultant is the use of brand storytelling. You know, our experiences, our anecdotes, etc. Like that's an optimal way to individualize ourselves. Yeah, particularly like as job applicants are competing in such high volume markets, for instance. So, can AI contribute in any way in terms of us individualizing ourselves from within competitive markets?
Absolutely. I think again, in not in telling us who we are, for it to know who we are and what we believe and what we've done, we have to give it that information. So when I do branding sessions with executives, particularly women in leadership, I always tell them if you're comfortable, right? Everyone's on a different spectrum of their comfort level with AI at this point. But if you're using AI and if you're comfortable to start a chat in your AI where anytime something really remarkable happens, you've achieved something in your work or you've, just in your day to day, you're achieving these small successes with your team, with your clients, new solutions, new products. Start building a chat in your AI about those
Um,
achievements because we can't possibly remember. I mean, I can barely remember what I ate for breakfast yesterday, let alone everything that I've achieved every day
I
over
know
the course
probing
of an
clients can be difficult.
career,
Yes. Yes.
right? It can be difficult. I'm sure you experience that
Yep.
too. I'm trying to help extract that information from them and get them
Yep.
to recall. Um, there's a richness of experience that can come from, it's a bit like journaling, starting to track that and record that and have that saved somewhere. You can just dictate that every day for 5 minutes, once a week, once a month
Great
for five
idea.
minutes
That's a great
in,
idea.
into AI. It can then take that, it can turn it into a document that you save in a folder on your desktop of, things I've achieved. And then when
Yep.
it comes to, doing your career branding with somebody like you, they have an entire folder of experiences
That's a
to
great idea.
provide to you that have incredible highlights that were rich in detail in the moment that they happened. They weren't
Yep.
5 years later
Yep.
trying to recall what
Yeah,
happened in
exactly.
that moment. They feel richer and they translate into better stories because of that detail that's readily available. So
And
I
it's so
often add
fresh. Yeah.
it's so fresh. So even when I ran and managed large teams, I had everybody on my team had like a celebrate myself folder, right? Where anytime they got a great piece of feedback over email from a partner, save that email and put it in that folder. You're not going to remember it 6 months from now, but when you
No.
go back and look at all the things that you had in those folders, what those moments were, and you have to present yourself in an annual review, who you know who to go to, who can support your case because you
Yep.
have their names from the email they sent you, you have the situations, you have the context. This is a little bit similar to that, right? It's creating your own like celebrate
Like
myself folder,
a
but
database of achievements.
like a
Yeah.
database. Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
those are your stories, right? Those are your narrative. Those are your experiences. I think often we think like, oh, that's what patting myself on the back to just keep, celebrating myself. But we work in a competitive market, right? Where we're all trying to stand out for what makes us unique, for what we've
100%.
done to cut through for, we're competing for roles and we're competing for growth. And
Yep.
the only way to do that effectively, as you would know better than anyone, is to really highlight those experiences that
Your
make you stand out.
standout accolades and achievements. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great
Yeah.
idea. So it's sort of like a data companion, yeah?
Yeah, it's like a bit of like a digital journal or a little digital diary, but just one chat, hit the record button. I'm big on just voice dictating and
Yep.
rambling because you can
Yep.
ramble all you want. You can sift through it. It'll turn it
Yeah.
into a real nice anecdote story. You can
Yeah,
turn that into
wow.
document and save it, or you can keep it in there. But just to keep that going, every time something exciting or interesting happens, then you have so much richness of experience to talk about into your brand, into your stories.
Yeah, and so it's obviously again a time saver, yeah. So a time saver in
Yeah.
terms of managing data, including what happens in your mind, etc. But
Yeah.
I'm also thinking, as humans, we tend to focus on the negative and forget the positives. So having that data bank of all the positives is only going to make you feel like if you're about to undergo a career transition, for instance,
Yeah.
looking back over that, wow, I can do this. Yeah, it's going to
Yeah,
build
exactly.
strengthen your belief in yourself. Yeah,
Exactly like you said, we're often navigating career transitions at times that are emotionally very low as
yeah,
well, right? For very many reasons, either, burnout or lack of cohesion or redundancy, or we're not often navigating career transitions when things are at their best.
yeah,
So that's really important that you said that, because now you have something to go back and actually reflect those positives back to you and remind you in that bit dark gray time, of all of the great things that you
yeah.
have
Love
done.
that.
I
Love
think
that.
that's phenomenal. And mentally as well, right? Our brains are only so large. We're receiving millions and
Yeah.
millions and millions of pieces of data every single day, all the
10K,
time,
about up to
everywhere we go.
10,000 online ads per day, I've read recently.
Yeah, yeah, and that's just the ads. Then you add the social
Yeah,
media, the work emails, the radio ads, I mean, it's insane how much information our brains are holding. So all of this, it's going to get lost, right?
yeah,
Because it's not survival information. It's not what we need to actually function on a day-to-day basis. So we have
yeah,
to put it somewhere to make sure that we don't forget
yeah.
it. And
Absolutely
AI
love
is
that.
really,
Love
really
that
helpful.
idea. I wonder if you could set it up. This is just me going maybe a bit far now, but I wonder if you could set it up in a way that it then reminds you every now and then of something great you've done, or
Yeah,
yeah,
it can actually. They have great features now that I really like. They have notification
yeah, like a
features where
notification. Hey, don't forget you
you
did
can
this,
set
or
up
someone said
yeah,
this, or love that.
you can set up a chat, and every day or once a week, where it can prompt you to
Yeah,
remind you to put something in, and then it can then reflect those back to you. I use mine. I get like daily mantras sent to me that I read every morning that I really like,
yeah.
receiving. They're just quick quote, help
That's
like frame my day and then inspire me around something. And it's very small, but I
it all
find it
makes
really
a
helpful.
difference on how we feel for the day. That's a real positive use of AI there. You've converted me a little bit, Jemmy. Well done. Um,
A little bit, a little
uh,
bit.
so, what do you believe at this stage, at least? What are the main branding contexts where AI is really becoming essential?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think essential is a big word,
True, true. But
because
particularly when there's so much unknown with AI at this
there's
stage. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't think that it's essential for branding. I
Yeah.
really I
Okay.
really don't.
Yep.
Um, I think it's helpful. I think it can save us an enormous amount of time. Like we just talked about, it can help us resurface really important memories or
Yep.
experiences, that
Do the
add
online
richness to those
research.
stories. It can help do that research. So I don't think it doesn't change branding in my
Yeah. Okay.
perspective at this point. It
Yep.
doesn't change how we deliver our brand to the world. That's still us to
Yeah.
come from us. But particularly if you're aiming to build a really consistent brand voice, right? Like I've worked with some clients who they're working towards the release of a book, a TED Talk, right? Something really, really major. And
Yep.
they're like, my promotion strategy is to build a really engaged large network on LinkedIn. I need to post 4 times a week. And I don't have time in my week to come up with 4 posts every single week.
Yep.
And I think for activities like that, some of that outward activity, um, that can become very essential. It becomes an essential part of your process, either in helping you generate new ideas for
Yes.
posts every week, or helping you start asking you the right questions that you then reflect on and answer to go into your post.
Yep.
Again, from your expertise, you're now answering questions that turn into your perspective, from managing a bit of that cadence for you, and helping you outline, like, on this day we post about this, so I'm going to prompt you to answer these questions, and that's going to help formulate talking points for you to put into a post.
But
I think all
then
of this,
obviously, sorry to cut you off. Obviously, you then interweave your voice, your experiences, your
yes,
unique self
that's it. That's
within
it.
the idea it's given you. Yeah. So it's not about it
Yeah.
writing it for you, which is probably my main concern, that it's taking over human effort and critical thinking. But it's more that it's
Yeah.
just helping you to come up with some ideas, and then you work from that. It's like a foundation. Yeah.
It can be a really, really helpful foundation and thought partner.
Yep.
Um, I am a proponent of people using it to write their posts, but caveat that with that takes a lot of work to get to that point, because you
Yeah.
do have to train it and set it up in a way where it understands exactly who you're speaking to,
Yeah.
how you communicate, what your tone, you essentially have to train it on your
To know
style
you, to really
to
know
know
you. Yeah.
you. Yeah, to know you. And even then generating posts, I've never seen a post for myself or a client that was AI generated that didn't need 30% of it tweaked
Yeah.
before
Okay.
it's posted, right? So it
Yep.
gets really, really good, but it's still a starting point. You're still going to want to put, nah, I wouldn't say this like that. I want to change this nuance here. And it's often those little changes that stand out to people the most.
Yes. Yes.
Your little quips and your quirks and the way you say things or the way you transition sentences. Like, these aren't things that um AI is phenomenal at yet.
Yes. Yes.
And so there's always work that you need to do before
Yes.
that goes out to really bring the human back
Yeah.
into it. But
Interweaving
it's
the
a great
human.
way to get started.
Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah.
I know I'm seeing a lot of recruiters now on LinkedIn, etc., talking about, and the ATS CEO said the same thing, that they can tell when a resume has been completely
Yes.
generated by AI, and it generally puts them off, because it could convey a lack of effort, lack of critical thinking, but also they're all using similar tools, so the resumes all sound the same.
Yeah.
So you've really got to
Yep.
interweave your unique humanness into the content, don't you? If you're going to use
Yeah.
it
That's
to set foundations, yeah?
Absolutely. I think when people use AI for things like resumes, the most effective uses of that are to say, well, here's my existing resume. I'm applying for a role in the consulting industry, and help me take the language that's in my resume and reflect it to the language that is going to be familiar for a recruiter in the consulting
Yep,
industry, right? So
yep. So
you're
like
not
keyword
changing your
optimization,
experience.
yeah?
It's optimizing the way
Yeah,
you explain your experience so that it actually does reflect that industry better, so that
yes.
it'll stand out to that recruiter a bit better. But it's not about optimizing your career history with AI. You can't change your career history, but the way you
No.
talk about it, I think, is really important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting times. Um, and this
Mhm.
probably flows on nicely from what we've just been talking about, but I was wondering, do you think there's any way at this stage that AI can help us to optimize human to human engagement and connection?
Yes, but not at the point of connection. So again, I think it doesn't replace the humans at the point of connection,
Yeah,
but
okay.
I think the way that AI collates and synthesizes and represents data to us is absolutely phenomenal, because we're all well-intentioned people, at least most of us. We're well-intentioned people. We want to stay in touch with these people, but we have these networks and they're growing and they're vast and they're
We're all
all,
busy.
online, and we're all busy. So how do you possibly stay in touch with all of the people you want to stay in touch with
Yep.
all the time? And so I
You can't.
think you can't. You absolutely can't. You always drop the ball on
Yep.
something. You can't get to everything. So where AI is really helpful in that connection, is, just understanding the makeup of your network a bit better. There's some cool apps that are available now, that if you're traveling to another city, right? Like, I love LinkedIn, but it's pretty challenging on LinkedIn to go through and use the filters available to know like who, is in this role in this part of this city that
Yeah,
I'm traveling
quite
to.
cumbersome.
Um,
Yeah.
it's a bit cumbersome. So there's some AI overlay types of apps now that can actually be really helpful for that. So if I'm going to be in New York City and I want to catch up, with people who I haven't seen from this past job, or I want to talk to people in my network who are potential clients from a certain industry, just to help me prepare for that.
Yeah.
There's some really great AI apps that are pulling data from different places and then
Wow.
pulling all together, which I think is great because you do want to go and meet these
Yeah.
people and you want to catch up with them and you want updates on what's happening with them. So I think that's a phenomenal use
Does
of
it tap, would it be
supporting.
tapping into like your LinkedIn connections and networks, for
Yeah, it can
instance? And
it can tap it can tap LinkedIn. It can because AI can pull from multiple sources. So they can pull from LinkedIn, they can pull from the web, updates, other social media, people's job descriptions, company websites, all sorts of things, right?
yeah,
Depending on
yeah.
what your goal is and who you're aiming to connect with. So again, like that aspect of preparation, preparing you to connect. On the other side of that, I think the ability to personalize our connection is really, really cool. So, and now there's a lot of, people often record their calls when they have calls with clients or
Yes.
prospects, or
Yes.
and you have these call transcripts and you have systems, I think, which are so helpful for then being able to remember, like, oh, well, Jeanette said she was going on holiday in December to, she's going skiing in Japan
Yep.
in December, and you mention a specific place, and then I don't speak to you again, until next April. And I
Yep.
want to be able to come back and say,
And
how
remember,
was your vacation? In, and remember, and it's not, I don't think it's cheating because it's not that
no,
I've
it's just
told it,
going and
oh,
finding
well,
the
what should
data.
I
Yeah.
talk to Jeanette about? Right, right. I'm not asking it all. What should I talk to Jeanette about? Help me have a conversation with
Yeah.
somebody,
Yeah.
right? It's human to have a conversation, but it would eat me up to not remember where you went on holiday. And I want to be able
Yeah.
to come back and say, how was that? That wasn't that must have been amazing. So just, and that's a bit of a throwaway example, but I think being able to resurface personal details from conversations and weave those back in to create more connection, to
Yeah.
let
That's
people
a,
know that you care about what they said and
yeah.
you care about
Yeah.
what they mean, and you remember those little details, or you bring those details back up. It just makes everything feel less transactional,
Yeah. Again,
and
another positive of
more
AI there. Yeah.
more
So,
personal.
I'm assuming what it does is it can go across your conversations you've had with these people, for instance, and pick up on highlights. And yeah, wow,
Yeah,
amazing.
and anything that's recorded too, I think that's really important, right? From a privacy perspective, you
Yes,
cannot, this is the serious side, you cannot record a conversation with somebody without their permission. So before
yes,
you get on a call, Zoom, Teams, everything, it says this call's being recorded. Do you consent to that? You accept that, and it lets you know that, right? So that this is going to be in a record. And I think it's absolutely fair game to go back and say, oh, Jeanette said something really nice about this, and I want to bring that back
well, you're
up,
using
or
it
I want to introduce her
in a
to
positive
something.
way, yeah,
You get in a positive way. Yes.
yeah,
And there's plenty of people out there who will absolutely use it in terrible, evil, nefarious ways and for the wrong reasons, and to go and be pushy salespeople. And
yeah,
that's also human nature, right? To take
yes,
advantage is
of
also
course,
human nature, right?
of
So
course,
it's the good and the bad.
yeah, absolutely. And where do you foresee AI? I know it's moving fast and it's hard to predict, but where do you foresee AI having the most impact in terms of branding activities?
It, I think in that that maintaining that brand consistency, right? Because once I think it still takes human discernment, expertise to develop the right positioning around a brand that understands the culture and
Yes,
understands the moment and understands how to present that with the right nuance to the right audience, right?
yep,
That's just a gift of being human and reading energy and reading a room.
yep,
But I think once you have a brand kit established, right, and you start to collect, like we said, your folder of
Your
stories,
achievements
of
and
experience,
stories and
your achievements, and you start to put that in a single place where that data can be reused, it can be resurfaced. Anytime now you go to write a bio for a different speaking engagement, for a proposal, for a podcast interview, any of these things, you can have that resurfaced
yeah,
for
well,
you
again, doing the
much
research for you,
faster,
yeah?
right? Doing the research, and if you've trained it in the right way, it's going to be consistent every single time. So you set the guidelines around how you want that to sound, how you want to be presented to maintain that consistency. And I think for so many people, often if other people write bios, they go on LinkedIn and they look at what they've done and they write bios about them. Sometimes they can sound a bit cringe because
Yes.
they don't include like the right level. So, I mean, it gives us an opportunity to actually write our own stories, to write our own bios, from that experience and present those with very little effort, right? So we're
Yeah.
not spending half a day writing that. We're going, well, actually, let me just give you a bio. Please
Yes.
introduce me like this, right?
Yeah,
Because this tells
yeah.
you much more about me and who I am than what you see, in a LinkedIn career history.
Yep.
And that, I think it does give us some ownership, and returns ownership over our own stories
Yeah,
and how we
yeah.
tell those and how we consistently can provide those stories, right? Like take this bio and it's 1,000 words. Now I need it to be 200.
Yes.
That's a really challenging exercise
I
to
do that.
do, but
Yes,
it can
I
help
do
you get
that.
started with, yeah. It's very challenging to bring that down.
Yeah.
Put the highlights here that are most important for X circumstance and situation and help you cut that down a bit faster.
So again, it's about you knowing the right prompts for AI as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just a
Yeah.
matter of, I think, practice and getting used to prompting it. But like we talked about, having the right questions, knowing it's less now about, you hear this word prompt engineering, but it's much less now about knowing exactly what the AI needs to hear. And it's more conversational now. It's
Yep.
much more about understanding what you want your outcome to look like and being
Yes.
clear
Yes.
about from from the going in. So you like really thinking critically about what is the end goal here that I'm actually asking for to get that closer to being right
Yep.
the first time.
And it's what I hear regularly. It's about AI being our support. Yeah. It
Yeah.
services us. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
services us. It should serve us. It shouldn't run us.
Yeah.
And I think, as knowledge workers as well, we've created a lot of work for ourselves. We've created a lot of process. Computers have created, all these opportunities. We create documents and we create slides and we reformat them and we represent them and we, change them slightly for this
Yep.
situation or that situation. We've really created a lot of work for ourselves. So let's let the computer take a little bit of that work back and do it
Yes.
itself. So we now have more time, right? We have 2 more hours in our day or maybe 2 more hours in our week that we can now go and actually have a conversation. We have time for a coffee with somebody that we haven't seen in a long time. Like take
Yes.
that time that we save and put it into the right activities, that are really human, that drive connection, that fill our cup. And I think that's a real benefit.
Just something I'll be interested to see what your opinion is on this because it sort of ties in with what you've just been saying. I shared a post of her comments last week. Emma Thompson, the famous UK actress, was asked about how she feels about AI because she's a writer,
Yeah.
and she said that she still writes by hand because she believes from the brain to the hand. Yeah, it's about digesting the information and the thoughts, and then puts it on the typewriter. But she likes the process, and I'm probably a bit the same. I find I take in people's information a lot better when I write it out or type it out. How do we work around that need in terms of using AI? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I handwrite my notes.
Yep.
Still, if I need
So
to
you're the
remember
same, yeah.
actions, I think there is something about the brain to
It
hand
digests it, yeah.
action when you see it with your eyes and you see it produced. That's there is a stronger connection there.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
like scientifically proven that that's really important. I also think for me, when I handwrite stories, right, if I'm recalling different things about my experience or reflecting on stories, actually, if I handwrite them, um, they flow much easier than if I type
Yeah.
them. I would have
Yeah.
typed in the first
I,
instance.
I find writing works better. Yeah,
It
I
works
agree.
better. So to reconcile that with AI can read handwriting, it can read photos.
Oh,
So
wow.
often, what I have clients do in their businesses, I work with a lot of coaches and a lot of consultants who sit in front of clients and they don't want to have their computer open taking notes, so they will handwrite notes. If your handwriting is legible, that's very important. But then you can snap photos of those notes and put them into an AI. So often they'll have, folders for each of their clients, and then
Yeah,
they'll take
wow.
take those notes, take photos of those notes, and it will turn the handwritten notes into
Yeah,
um,
wow.
transcribed typed notes for you,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
you can take something you've written by hand and have it typed up 90% of the way correct for you without you then having to spend hours copying what you've already written
Yeah.
the computer, right?
Yeah,
Let the
yeah.
computer do the work, and then you look
Yes.
at it on there, you add the pieces in between. It probably missed a few things, like any person also would. It's
Yeah.
going to miss things and
Yeah, of
make a
course.
few mistakes,
Yeah.
but you don't have to then spend that time in between typing that up. And I would argue anybody that famous is probably also not the one typing it up themselves. So imagine what all the assistants out there could be out doing
Yes.
instead of just
Yes.
data entry and typing data in, right? They
Yes.
could they could take their role so much farther, do
Yeah, that's
much
true.
more
I guess
interesting work.
it it's allowing us more creative time, really, isn't it? Taking away some of that manual
It
work
is.
and
Yeah,
allowing
if
more
you're on a
creative time.
It is that time is important. If you're on a deadline for something and okay, I only have 2 weeks to write this and I need to write it by hand, and then I need to leave myself a week to get this in to type form,
Yep.
right? You now have 4 more days, 5 more days to actually sit with the writing before having to turn it into type form just for the sake of delivering it to the next person who needs to read it. And I think that's great. It allows you much more of that time for that
Yeah.
creativity or maybe more time on the upfront to go be inspired in nature, in real life. You're spending time, in different countries with groups of people, speaking to more people, doing the research for that writing that informs it, makes it that much more rich because you didn't have to just spend time copying from what you wrote to get it onto the computer. I think
Yes.
that's really right. This is part of the work we've created up for ourselves by creating computers,
Yeah,
is having
yeah, God, yeah.
to
And
translate.
my neck and shoulders aren't happy with all the years I've done on computers. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I guess there are those benefits, and I mean, but it's sort of, and it's about how much you choose to use it. It's using it wisely, AI, and if you're someone like us who believes in that information digestion through first handwriting, well, you keep doing that, and then be smart with when you're translating it onto a computer, for instance. Use AI to help you. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, exactly. And then to iterate with it, right? To then this is what's really important is the neuroscience research is starting to show that when we are just having robots and computers do everything for us, the instance of things like Alzheimer's and dementia significantly
yes.
increase because the
I've heard
brain
that.
is atrophying because it's not active in the process. So it's
Yeah.
really important to use this as a piece of an active process where you're not
Yes.
just having it give you everything to the point where not critical thinking.
Yeah.
I think we still need to be creative. We still need to be critical of what we're receiving and have a bit of
Absolutely.
back and forth to get that to the right place. But
Yep.
hopefully that leads to richer outcomes, not just more volume, but actually richer, better outcomes because we
Yeah.
actually had time to do more of what informs great work, not
Yes.
just do more work.
I know being out in nature hiking, I come up with so many ideas when I'm out hiking. And yeah, having
Yeah.
more time to be able to do that would be fabulous. Yes, I get
Mhm.
what you're saying. It doesn't mean you have to erase the human creativity. It's using it wisely to enable more creative human creativity time, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I even hear that from some designers, filmmakers, people in the media, right? There's elements too in those spaces of access that I've heard them talk about, where if you don't have the funds to go and film, a great pilot, or you have an idea in your head to actually be able to bring that to life, to present that to somebody, most people don't have access to the funds to be able
Yeah,
to do that in a live set and team and production. But there's millions and millions of people with these brilliant ideas that they can now get from their head and get a sketch, get an idea of it generated by AI to then become some really phenomenal new approaches to films and new stories that are able to be told because they could be pitched better.
yep,
And so I've appreciated that perspective, because I think a lot of people in the creative world are very nervous about what
they
this
are.
replaces.
Yeah,
And rightly so, very, very rightly so. I think we should all be a bit nervous about that. But the access that it creates in some of those spaces, I think, is really interesting as
yep,
well.
yep. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so, there's still a lot of scope there for the human creative. Um,
Yeah.
and in line with that, my next question was about whether there's any safeguards or guardrails you'd recommend we use at this stage when using AI for branding.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many. That's a whole different recording session is on privacy and security. Um, the top ones I recommend are, there are settings on all of these tools to turn off what you share publicly.
Like on
So you can,
LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, yeah?
like on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, there is a setting which has now gone live, by the way. So if you have not turned off
I have turned it
your
off. I followed
opt-in,
that's how I
yeah,
found you, remember,
very,
through that
very
post.
important advice. LinkedIn is now using people's posts and profiles to train their specific content generation AI that
Yep.
they are developing, but you have the right to turn that off. Unfortunately, if you haven't turned it off yet, it means everything you've ever posted has already gone in. And
Too
I
late.
will always say, once the dry ingredients go into the wet cake mix, they're not coming back out,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
There's no way to separate it back out and remove it once it gets mixed into
But
the batter.
anything new that you
Anything new.
post.
So
Yeah.
going forward, you can turn it off. So anything new you post, you add, doesn't get added to that. And
Yep.
there's two sides to that. I know people who say, well, what I talk about, I think, is really important. I talk about women's empowerment. I talk about topics on LinkedIn that aren't talked about enough. And I actually do want those to end up in a content generation. I want those to be part of the ideas
Yep.
that are surfaced, that are trained on. And so they leave it on. And I think that's phenomenal. And there's a lot of people who say, well, I just don't know enough about this and what this means for me, so I'm going to turn it off until I figure that out.
That's
I
probably
think
me.
that's one.
Yes.
Yeah. ChatGPT is the same. So you have the option to turn off on the lowest level of subscription. You can turn off whether your data is used for training
Right.
or
Okay.
not. So turn that off if you
Yep.
don't want your information that you're putting in about your career history and your personal stories to then end up mixed into the cake batter as well. And by subscribing to it, that's your right to do, and they make it very, very easy to do. And
Yep.
then there's other tools out there that people will use, things like AI image generators that will like create headshots for you from, a couple of selfies. Those are a lot of fun. It's very important to read the privacy policy that you're accepting, because some of them actually do they say very clearly that they own your likeness once you've uploaded it into their
E.
system. And they can
E.
sell that, yeah, they can take your likeness, they can turn it into things like stock photos, and they can then sell those stock photos as a part of a library, for
Right.
example, right, with your face on them, and you're gonna all of a sudden get a pitch deck that has your face on it, and you're
Perhaps
wondering
some of the ones I pick up on Canva might already be
how
there.
it how it got there. Yeah, so this is where that's going. So you want to be really sure that the tools you're using say very explicitly that you own your
Yeah.
likeness, that you're going to
Yeah.
sell your likeness.
Yeah. Wow.
If you're unsure, one of my favorite tricks, if you're unsure what all that privacy gook means, copy paste it into ChatGPT and ask it, does this mean that I
I'm protected.
own my photos, or will they own my
Yeah.
likeness?
Yeah.
You can ask
Wow.
it, and it'll break it down for you and simplify the whole thing for you. So I
Great
think that's
idea.
really really, really helpful. But particularly around likenesses, voice, that's a slippery slope of an area that we're starting to get into with new apps that allow you to generate other people's faces and
Yeah, there's
voices.
already been court cases about that. Yes.
Yep, yep. There's a new app from OpenAI called Sora that's a bit like a TikTok style app, but it generates these AI videos off of people's images and historical figures. And there was a whole thing about Martin Luther King's image was available
Oh,
in there.
geez.
So people were regenerating like the I have a dream speech, but about like really nebulous, stupid topics. You
Oh,
could have
yuck.
say whatever you wanted. So that's a real tough spot that we're
Yeah.
in right now is like who owns the images of historical figures? Who owns our likeness? Do we maintain ownership of that? And Australia is doing great things as well in this
But
space.
they have
And
just brought in some law last week protecting
yeah,
creatives, I believe. Yeah.
yeah. So protecting copywritten information. So
Yeah.
AI tools will not have the rights to train data on any copywritten Australian material without
Yep.
paying the creator.
Yeah.
Um, what the AI companies have said is that's fine. We'll continue to operate in Australia, but it's not going to reflect the most up to date or the most accurate information. But I
Yep.
think there's benefit to that because if you're reflecting information for free that comes from people's creative intelligence and intellectual property, then that's only fair, right? Then you're just copycatting for free, right?
Absolutely.
You're pirating.
Yeah.
So I think government laws are going to the right government laws in the right places are going to help with
Yeah.
protection
Yeah.
as
Okay.
as well.
Okay. Great. One last question. And I've probably got a feel of what your answer will be based on this whole discussion, but what would you say your philosophy is in terms of AI being used to benefit humans?
Um, that's a big question
It
as
is.
well. Um, I mean, right now, honestly, I think there's as many upsides as downsides, and that is scary.
Hmm.
We're at a point where we're figuring out what path this is going to take. Is this
Yeah.
going to in the right direction of benefiting humans, or is this just going to benefit a few humans,
Heck
and
knows.
not the rest of us, right? But today, where it's at in terms of benefiting humans, I think like we talked about a bit of access to opportunity by being able to create and generate things that cost an enormous amount of money to do in the past,
And
I think
time. Yeah.
is time is wonderful. I think I work with a lot of women's businesses. At CEOs and just being time pressed in a small business and the opportunity of just getting time back in your hands that
Yep.
creates for you then to be able to actually create growth for your business is an economic benefit that I think
Yep.
is phenomenal for small businesses. I think mentally, as people, like I said, our brains are overloaded, overwhelmed with
Fried.
information all the time. So offloading all of the things that we want to remember, but it's like having an external hard drive to
Yeah, I
our own
love that. I
minds
love that idea. Love that one.
rather than keeping it all in here, right? We
Yep.
just put it aside, but we can access it when we need it. And then
Yeah.
we use our minds to focus on being healthy, being present, being creative, being less encumbered by just remembering stuff. I think
Yes.
there's got to be a long-term health benefit linked to that I
Yep.
think will be really transformative at some point. So the benefits are there. They go way beyond just convenience. Um,
Yes.
I think they create opportunity, they can create wealth, they can create access, they can create better health for us. But we hopefully stay in the right direction of not just using it to replace people,
Yes. That's
replace
right.
jobs. That's a
Take
real
away human endeavor that's,
yes,
a fundamental part of being human, yeah?
absolutely. And then, like I said much earlier, but the sustainability question, right, is
Yeah.
how
Yeah, I
how
hadn't thought of that.
how much AI do we need? How far does this go? And what is the actual balance of that to our nature, to our ecosystems, to climates, to water use. Like these are really big questions that are, there's a limit, right? There's
Yeah.
going to be a limit, and at which point that has to be set and that has to be adhered to. Some governments are going to, some are not. Uh,
Yes. That's
so being
part of the problem, isn't
responsible,
it?
yeah,
It's a
it is. It
global,
is.
it's a global concern, yeah?
But learning to become responsible users for the right places and not in the others that add to the problem, I think is just like, right, like we fly commercial. I can't afford a private jet, but if I could, right, there's many people who can afford private jets who still fly commercial simply because of the footprint of that,
Sustainability.
right, the
Yeah.
sustainability of that. So
Yep.
that's being a responsible user, a responsible, you're still flying, right?
Yep.
You're not walking there, right? So it's
Yeah.
not a zero footprint,
Yeah.
but you've made a more sustainable choice. And I think
Absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
responsible usage.
Yeah, 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 and I do think when the novelty, like it is such a there's so much hype about it at the moment. Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe when the hype sort of calms down, because a lot of us are wowed with what it can do, but maybe when that all calms down, humans will start thinking, well, how do I use this in a way that benefits me? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So too. And there's a long way to go on
There is.
all this, but I'm a big proponent that to have a qualified opinion of how to make it better or how it should be used, we should all learn a little bit about how to use it and how it works so that
Yes,
we can be part of coming up with the right
be part of
solutions and
the
say,
conversation. Yeah.
part of the conversation and say, we really don't need that. Like, we don't need all that. We don't need to
Yep.
go that far, but this is great. And this has real economic mental health and creation benefits
Yeah. Yeah.
versus just more stuff that we don't need, that's not good for
The
people
AI
and
slop.
yeah. So just, I encourage people just to start to learn how to use it, watch a few videos on how to use it, start to form a qualified opinion, of your own
Yep.
to be part of that conversation, and part of the pushback if you want, right? Like if there's things to there's many, many things to push back on. There's many things
Yes.
to be worried about, but then have a qualified opinion
Yes.
about why and where the limits are. And I think that makes a much stronger
Very
case.
wise advice, Jemmy. Very wise advice.